Shalom. Shalom. Gonna start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakudash. Yahweh is the true name of the Heavenly Father, the ancient Hebrew. Yahweh Shai is the true name of His only begotten Son. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and salutations to the elect of Israel, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Bible, or the so-called blacks, so-called Hispanics, and so-called Native Americans, as well as you Israelite foreigners that may look like the other nations but believe it's truth. This is the Brother Shakal here with a video lesson on the division between a beast and a whore in the book of Revelations, mainly 13, Revelation 13 and Revelation 17, but also 12, 18, 19, 16. The beast is Rome, which were in the revised Roman Empire, through the NATO and the EU. And America is the great whore that sits on the beast, which the 7 heads of the beast is NATO today, and the 10 horns of the EU, and our power Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua is bringing division amongst this beast system ran by the Edomites, the so-called white man, which you go into that word beast, in the Greek is therion, going into a beastly man, and that's Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is the beastly man that runs the system. And as you see the title, the Lord is dividing and conquering this system. Now, the Lord can do however He wants. So the scripture say the king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh Bashem Yoshai. The king's heart is in our power's hands, in the Lord's hands. As rivers of water, He turneth it whithersoever He will. So the Lord can do it how He wants. And how the Lord is doing it is one of the ways is bringing down Esau. Really, He's doing it bringing down Esau in every single sense, financially, economically, militarily, agriculturally, every single way you can imagine. The Lord is bringing them down through the famine, the sword, the teeth of wild beast, pestilence, and war. If I didn't just say that, but the Lord, one of the ways, Yahweh Bashem Shah is doing it is through division of their current ruling system. And the prophecies go into this. Now, I have a couple articles to go into as measuring the times diligently. It's good to say and be a watchman. This is from the Daily Express US, titled Former Allies Turning Their Backs on Trump, including France, Germany, and the UK. And so these European allies of the beast are starting to turn on America. And really it's Trump who's been set up by the Heavenly Father Yahweh and His Son Yahweh Shah to be this sore thumb or loose screw that is just just bombing countries, and doing outlandish things that the other presidents have not done, but really is to bring all the prophecies to come to pass. And so America's allies hate what Trump's doing. They can't get down with what Trump's doing, and so they're starting to turn on America, fulfilling prophecy. And so let's read the title again. Former allies turning their backs on Trump, including France, Germany, and the UK. Trump's aggressive foreign policy has driven America's UN support to a low, with only 7 loyal allies remaining as the world shifts dramatically towards China, and then militarily towards Russia, which is Gog Magog in Ezekiel 38, 39, and Revelation 20. Which has the greatest nuclear arsenal, is what the Lord gave them to shoot on America in the climax of World War III. which America's Babylon the Great, to be destroyed by fire in World War III, by the missiles and the laser beams from the chariots, our Lord Yahweh Shah's coming in, the so-called UFOs. Reading on from, so we read that they got 7 loyal allies left, and so we're gonna read how many left, how many are departing from America. This is from deposing Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro to threatening to annex Greenland, which has happened recently, then bombing narco-terrorist boats and launching airstrikes and killing the leadership of Iran, which just happened. It's little wonder the world has trouble keeping up with Donald Trump's foreign exploits. So they're looking at Trump like, what the hell is he doing? He's supposed to benefit us as their allies. Read on. However, just how alienating has this so-called Darrow Doctrine blizzard of assertive and unashamedly national interest-oriented second-term Trump policies been? And how exactly can we know which countries are choosing the only other comparable world hegemon, China, over that of the USA? And again, militarily, Russia is, as it's good to say, will be a guard to these weaker nations. Ezekiel 38. Persia, Iran, and Gomer, which is Turkey, are 2 of those main nations. And Turkey is a part of NATO, which is, getting with BRICS, and banning the dollar, and just saying they don't trust in America, has also made statements about saying him and the Turkish president and Putin were the only 2 real world leaders, and they've been working together. And so that's more prophecy speaking, especially with Turkey, which is Gomer and Ezekiel 38, joining Russia in one of America's allies, leaving off from it. It's going to shoot missiles on America at the end, which was very soon. Reading on a report, one method for which there is easily measurable and ample data is the United Nations voting records showing which nations have voted alongside the United States versus China over this period, and the results are more extreme than you would think. A report by research platform Focal Data analyzing UN voting records does confirm that Trump's America's First administration is tipping the world towards China. So much so that the world has never been as close to Chinese international policy in living memory. Data shows that China, while China has approximately maintained its alliances, America's support has crashed to an all-time low, with only core allies remaining firmly within Camp USA. So America's support has crashed to an all-time low. An all-time low. Where previously Joe Biden and Barack Obama could count on an average of 46 nations consistently supporting them at the UN, Trump can only count on a paltry 7 allies that remain shoulder to shoulder with him. And so from 46 to 7, 39 nations that the last president could count on that Trump can't count on. There's 37 out the door, down the drain. And America's at an all-time low. And it's only going to get lower. And eventually the nations, these even allies, are going to shoot missiles on America. And that's the biblical prophecy. That's when it will be fulfilled. Revelation 17 and 16, which we'll get. We're reading on. Some of the 46 countries that have switched away from the U.S. include previously unthinkable detractors, such as World War II allies like New Zealand and France, to NATO's Germany and Italy, Ukraine, Poland, Netherlands, Italy, and even Japan are now far more likely to lean away from the U.S. And so, we're in a turning point of the third woe, which we're seeing all the chaos and socioeconomic or geopolitical, whatever the right word is, tensions that are stirring the whole world structure and hegemonies from World War II changing as the third woe is approaching of the NATO North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and America, which is the horde that sits on the beast, which the beast is revised from empire through the NATO and the EU. And now the weak saying they're strong, Joel 3, these weaker nations that feared America after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now they're saying they're strong through their missiles, and they're ready to shoot them on America. America's own allies are turning on it. Can't trust it. Russia's being a superpower. China's being a superpower to look to, and America's just going down the drain. And we're seeing just the beginning of it as the third woe is amassing in the Middle East, the Valley of Yehoshaphat, the Valley of Jehoshaphat, in Joel 3 and 2. Reading on. The 7 nations remaining loyal to Trump include the UK, Australia, and smaller Pacific Island nations like Micronesia and the Marshall Islands. Even Canada, which some might argue after tariffs and annexation threats would have reason to vote against Trump, has nevertheless remained a backer of the world stage. And we know Canada and America have been having, through the tariffs, have been having kind of a feud. And then the small hats, which is the main ally. So pretty much it's the world against the small hats in America in a nutshell. Not to say that exactly. But the small hats are America's, they're buddy small hats in America. The small hats are the least of the flock, drawing America into World War III. As the prophecy says. Now I won't say that exactly, that they're the only ones that are gonna end up being allies to the end of this thing, but those are 2 nations that are going to be destroyed completely. America will never be built back because it's Babylon the Great, and our land obviously will be built back into the as the kingdom of heaven is being built, with the elected Israel coming back down from the ships and taking the slaves of the heathen to build it, with precious stones and streets of gold and such. But now I have another article as well from BBC titled, Spain's Pedro Sanchez hits back at Trump threat to sever trade, saying no to war. Pedro Sanchez has delivered a strong rebuttal to U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to end trade with Spain by restating his opposition to war and what he called the breakdown of international law. And Trump was threatening to break trade with Spain for not helping him with the war. And Spain's basically biting back or kicking back and talking back to Trump, which America's supposed to be the boss of the whole earth, and the boss of NATO and EU. But now they're starting to kick back and turn from America, as prophecy says. Now let's get to the scriptures. We'll start at 18, Revelation chapter 17 and verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which is America, the great city, spiritual Sodom and Egypt, Revelation 11 and 8. This is the same thing about a great city. It's talking about America, Babylon the Great. This is the woman, which America is likened to the woman, the whore. You read further up in Revelation 17, it speaks about it being a whore, her being a whore. It's talking about America. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So who has reigned over the earth? America is the great city, the so-called city paved with gold, the land of opportunity. All the nations flocked here, and spread its philosophy through the 4 corners of the earth. Everyone wonders at America. And now they're starting a war against her and turn from her money, her philosophies, her ways, her rulers, her ideologies, her democracy, and everyone's turning against that. Even America's own allies, which we're specifically going into in this lesson. But America is seen as the top ruler and has once had that powerful sway, especially since World War II, the second woe in the Bible. Now we're in the time of World War III, the third woe in the Bible, which are only 3 woes. Revelation 11 and 14. America is the woman that reigns over the kings of the earth. And so America could tell NATO what to do, but now in the EU and now the NATO and EU nations are kicking back at America because the Lord is plaguing them with division. Yahweh Bashim Shah is conquering Esau's kingdom through them being divided amongst themselves. So now we're gonna skip up in Revelation 17 because that was the last verse. This is Revelation chapter 17 in verse 9. We'll start at 9. And here's the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And mountains represent governments in the scriptures. The 7 heads in ancient Rome was Greece, Rome, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Spanish, French, and the British. Today it's the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, created after World War II against Russia. Reading on verse 10, and there are 7 in America is the high mountain, pursuant to Isaiah 13 and 2. The destroying mountain, Jeremiah, it was one of Revelation, the 8th chapter, it's gonna be a mountain destroyed by fire. Talking about America. We're reading on verse 10, Revelation chapter 17 and verse 10. And there's 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Now the 5 that are fallen of the 7 are Greece, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Spanish, and the French. And the 1 that is not yet come that must continue a short space is talking about Great Britain, which is the mother of America, the mother of Babylon, pursuant to Jeremiah the 50th chapter, where it says, "Thy mother shall be sore confounded." You had 1776, the War of Independence, the British colonies, and all that, which you learn about in school. This is biblical prophecy. And it's also important to understand the Renaissance period, like Revelation 20th chapter, the 1,000-year period of the Dark Ages, where the so-called white man was in Europe in a beastly state, and Jake was ruling so-called dark rulers over Europe. And then in the Renaissance period, Esau, the devil, the so-called white man, came up out of Europe to deceive the 4 corners of the earth, as that beast was having a deadly wound that was healed, pursuant to Revelation 13 and 3. And so, leading to the modern day beast system, the revised Roman Empire. Same thing as the dragon. It's the same thing as the beast. Revelation 12 and 13. Reading on verse 11, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. So America is the 8th, and it goes into perdition. So America is the high mountain. It's established from the 7, and it goes through the birth canal of Great Britain, its mother, and America's set up to be destroyed. How is it going to be destroyed? Nuclear missiles in World War III, shot from Russia, its own previous disbanded allies, and all these countries with missiles. And also the laser beams from the chariots, the so-called UFOs, our Lord Yahweh Shah is coming back in with the holy angels. Zechariah 5 goes into that, consume America with the stones and thereof an altimeter about the concentrated heat of fire. 2 verse 13 also goes into it. Nothing but dust and smell of smoke, which is also going into the Middle East, but showing them chariots for laser beams of fire. Lord Yahweh Shah said he's come to send fire on the earth. There's going to be the laser beams for the chariots. 2 verse 13 going into the war of heaven, where Lord Yahushua annihilates the heathen and their militaries that try to fight against them. Which is actually going to go into that. We're going to read down verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest, which is the EU, are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast, or the European Union. In the original 10, you had 12, but Spain and Portugal are one, and the UK and Ireland are one. And then now I think it's 26 or something. I can't remember, but now it's the EU has grown a lot. The 10 horns has grown a lot. So reading on. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb. So that's that war in heaven just mentioned in 2 Kings 13. The Edomites are going to try to fight against the Lord Yahushua. That's how bad their pride has deceived them. But as the 2 Kings 13 says, they shall be sore afraid, yet durst fight. The Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and the Son Yahushua are going to make them fight to make it a good show of the Lord's power in judgment, to bring destruction upon them, which there is well deserved. Just like the Lord raised up Pharaoh to show his power and magnify his name, Yahweh, throughout the earth. Yahweh Bashim Yahushua's names will be magnified in a modern day Egypt, which is America. And there's going to be another new Passover, second Exodus, through America, which is the modern day Egypt. Reading on, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth, which again America's the whore, where we're in captivity, taken here in slave ships, had yokes of irons on our necks. Up further it says this is drunken with our blood of the saints, which were the saints as Israelites. Reading on, or it says the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. That's going into the great melting pot of all these nations here in America. All these nations have came to America to try to profit off Jake's oppression. These dogs that want to lick our sores, pursuing the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. These heathen coming to America, the so-called city paved with gold, the land of opportunity again, to have the American dream. So that's why you see all these, you go to, especially to the cities, but even in the suburbs, you see all these different heathen nations, because America's the great melting pot. That's what the whore that sits on many waters represents, the many waters. Reading on verse 16, here's the point. Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. So the 10 horns, we read it up for context. The 10 horns, today being the EU of this revised Roman Empire, and when they made that European Economic Community, they said they even felt like Romans that day. Because this is the revised Roman Empire. The image of the beast you read about in Revelation 13 is how the system reflects ancient Rome. How Rome lives here in this system. That's the image of the beast. You got the Senate, the Colosseums. Nero is Trump. Trump is Nero Slakia in the reincarnation. This is the revised Roman Empire. This is Rome all over again. So reading on, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. So the European allies of America that were joined to this beast system, this Edomite power structure, they're starting to turn on America. They would hate her at a point, and that hatred is boiling now. That's why we're reading America's losing all its allies and all its trust from even its own Edomite European allies. And what are they going to eventually do? And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So how is the whore going to be burnt with fire? Through the nuclear missiles. And that's how it's going to be done by its own allies. If you're absolutely fucking crazy and the Lord's not dealing with you, if you think this is some beast and some whore in the heavens and some galactic spiritual realm. I said 7 kings. So it's rulerships on the earth. America made the earth drunken with their wine, with their philosophy, and it spread the Roman way, the beast back to earth. The wickedness of the Edomites and their blessing the fatness of the earth and the sword, back to Genesis 27. And so now them having missiles, the Heavenly Father Yahweh and His Son Yahweh giving them missiles, even the missile, even their own allies are going to turn on them. And so we're going to get a couple precepts. But that's the main point, the main prophecy that is in. We're seeing a hatred of the beast and the whore. Trump's actions are causing complete chaos amongst the beast system. This is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 7, which is Obadiah is one chapter long, and it's all prophecy against the Edomites, which is the so-called white man, starting with their top being the least, including this, which are small hats. But all the small hats are Edomites as well. The Europeans, the Khazars, and so on. The Caucasians. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. And so America's allies are turning on her. Let's read it again. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. So this is what Yahweh Bashim Yoshai is doing to Esau, which America's Esau's main hub, causing his allies to turn on him. The men of his confederacy that he was at peace with. The men that are at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread, going into the money, which America has been the great whore that the modern day Tyre, which was a ancient city of great trade by ships. America's made the earth wax rich through its trade. You go into Revelation 18. And so a lot of these nations have done deals with America, but they're disbanding from the dollar, and they're leaving off from America, from the whore. They're starting to hate Esau, even these dark nations. And they're ready to war against America. And that's what we're seeing. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. So even those allies that have profited off America are sick of this whore. Let me get this one. Because there was a time when America was the shit. The baddest bitch in the stable. Everyone couldn't get enough of America. Everyone loved the entertainment and just the luster of America. But now it's all played out. And America's like just a dusty hoe, and nobody wants to touch her because they don't want to get diseased. And they're like, this is what has happened to us from dealing with America. She's unruly. She's proud, out of order. And they can't deal with her anymore. We're going to read this Jeremiah chapter 51, which goes exactly with Revelation, the 17th chapter, showing that the Babylon in Jeremiah 50 and 51 is dealing with future prophecy. That the Old Testament and the New Testament go hand in hand. But Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 7, Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord Yahweh's hand, showing that it's the Lord that's controlling this, that has caused America to push these philosophies through the four corners of the earth. This is not the so-called white man has no reason to be proud about this, like it was his own doings. The Lord set you up to do this and is going to destroy you for that wickedness that you've done. Because the Lord is the potter. Yahweh Bashim Yoshai controls all things. You're just a vessel, and we're just vessels, but on the right-hand side. reading on Babylon has been the golden cup in Yahweh's hand to do what? That made all the earth drunken with what? The wine of Babylon that you read about in Revelation 17 and 18, going into her philosophies and the fornication, going into spiritual adultery, porneos in the Greek, how these nations got in bed with Babylon and took on her ways. Why you see Americanization throughout the four corners of the earth, and Moism and homoism and democracy, alphabet community, wickedness, the American way spread throughout the four corners of the earth, and now these economic America, dollar being spread through the nations, and now there's those that took on the ways of America starting to get pissed off, as we're going to read. That made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunk of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. And so the nations that have been corrupted by America are starting to get pissed off, and they're starting to gear up against her militarily, economically leave off from her, and are ready to war. And the third war, eventually they're going to shoot their missiles on her. And America's going to be completely destroyed by fire and be inhabited only by wild desert birds and creatures for eternity, literal eternity. No man will ever inhabit America, Babylon the Great, ever again. Now let me get this one. Revelation chapter 18 and verse 16. And saying, alas, let's start at 15. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment. So those that ate her bread, that did business with her, that were waxed rich off trade with her, just like ancient Tyre, would ultimately lament and mourn at her fall. But even their leaders in their military would shoot missiles on her. Because this is the Lord's movie. This is all prophecy playing in motion, which we're living in now. The merchants of these, which is making all you scoffers look stupid, and the true prophets of Yahweh Bashmil Shah, talking about elders and apostles, great millstone on down, words are being vindicated, are coming to pass. Showing who the men of the Lord are, who served him and who served him not. And saying, and the merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, alas, alas, that great city, again, that great city, America, that was clothed in fine linen, and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, all these riches, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company and ships and sailors and as many trade by sea stood afar off. And so in 1 hour it's going to take, 1 hour is the time that the Lord wants America to be destroyed in 1 hour. So that's how it's going to be. And cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, because America's going to be destroyed by fire, the nuclear missiles, and the laser beams from our Lord Yahweh Shah's chariots, the so-called UFOs, including the fathership, the main so-called UFO, Lord Yahweh Shah is coming on it, the massive one. And they cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust upon her heads, and this is just like ancient Tyre. You read Ezekiel 27 and 28. Maybe even 26 if I'm correct. And they cast dust upon her heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea, by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy, which is the Israelites, the kingdom of heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, showing that there will be prophets here in Babylon the Great, whom Yahweh Bashmil shall give the victory and save them, give them the victory over this beast system, and allow them to see, and Lord's will of that number, to see the destruction of America from the ship. For Yahweh Bashmil Yoshai to avenge you on her. So the Lord's going to destroy America. And the elect are crying to Yahweh Bashmil Shah to destroy America. And the Lord's hearing those cries, just like ancient Egypt. Those that eat thy bread, that were a part of your beast system, are going to shoot, that were doing trade by sea with you, merchandise with you, you wax rich off them. They're going to shoot missiles on you and lament over you. And that's how the Lord's will. Now we're going to read this and close out here. Daniel chapter 7, in verse 19. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which goes with the beast in Revelation 13 and Revelation 17, as we read. And the same as the dragon in Revelation 12. The fourth beast being Rome, and Daniel's visions of the four beasts: Assyria, Babylon, the first beast; Medo-Persian Empire, the second beast; the ancient Greece, the third beast; ancient Rome, the fourth beast, which would have a revised Roman Empire through the little horn, which is America, in Daniel 7. So it said, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, because they had a strong military. They actually used iron weaponry. And his nails of brass, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. Same as the iron in Daniel's the second chapter of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the legs of iron, and were in the feet of the iron and clay, which will be divided, and our Lord Yahushua, the stone, will come back and set up the kingdom of Israel, which shall not be given to other people, and a kingdom that shall not pass away forever. It'll last forever. It'll stand forever. And rule over you heathen nations. And Esau is going to be cut off, completely extinct, pursuant to Obadiah 1 and 18, after those 1,000 years. To make that point as well, which is always a good point to make. Reading on, verse 20, Daniel chapter 7, verse 20, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, which is America. So there's just like Revelation 17, you had ancient Rome, and then leading to America, which America is the 8th, also known as the little horn right here. It says of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, which is the Spanish, the French, and the British, which had colonies here in America. You had the Spanish-American War, the French-American War, and the War of Independence fought between America and these different colonizers. That when the 3 were plucked up, and you read and you learn about that in school as well. I remember learning that in school in the 5th grade. Even of the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things. Here's the point: whose look was more stout than his fellows. So America, Esau to America, his look is more stout than his fellows. He even looks down at his own European companions, or so-called companions, because you know these Edomites get down. The Akim are going into Daniel the 11th chapter, see between the Syrian wars between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies, seeing how they get down, and they were at war with each other, but they would delete their own family, their own kin, to seize the power seat. So these Edomites are cutthroat. They don't have respect to their own fellows. So America looks down at his fellows, and that are carrying him. The beast that's carrying the whore, and the beast of burden is getting sick and tired of carrying America, and taking on her ways, and are going to shoot their missiles on her eventually in the midst of the, which we're seeing being abrupted now. And all these nations with missiles, all the nations are getting fed up with America, or the vast majority of them, and all the ones with missiles are going to shoot them on America. And so the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Shah is dividing Esau, the so-called white man, and his system. America, the one so-called great nation, is falling. Babylon is falling. And it's going to speak about falling in the past tense because the destruction is already written. We're just waiting for it to play out. So with that, I hope that was edifying. I'm going to give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Kokodash. Yahweh is the true name of the Heavenly Father, nation Hebrew. Yahweh Shai is the true name of Something God the Son. Double honors to the elders and apostles, most of them were well, and shalom to the elect.